virtual campground. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank
Thanks
you
for
for
having
having
us.
us.
We're excited to have you here. So the first thing we wanted to do is, would you introduce what is RV Love?
Sure. Well, we're Mark and Julie Bennett, and we hit the road as full-time RVers back in 2014. We sold our Colorado home, bought a motorhome, and Mark had a remote job, so we were able to live, work, and travel from the road. And when he was had the job that was supporting us, I decided on the side to start writing articles for our blog and creating YouTube videos, and honestly, just sharing for fun and learning. And it kind of just was a very organic process, and it grew organically from there, and then eventually took off, and now it's our full-time business. So now we write books and do online courses and create content for our blog and YouTube channel and all over social media, and just share what we learn and what we love about living and loving the RV life with everyone else out there.
Awesome. Well, and we know there are a lot of people out there. You guys have been doing it. Mark, how long have y'all been doing this now, RV Love?
Well, since 2014 is when we first started writing, and then it just kind of grew and grew. And at first, like Julie was mentioning, it was just a little side project for her to be creative. And then it became more than she could handle full time and more than I could do part time after my regular work. And so we eventually reached a tipping point in 2017 where I had to choose one or the other of my regular job or jumping both feet into doing RV Love. And it was so much more intrinsically rewarding to know that we're helping people through RV Love. So that's when we both dove into it, and it's been full time for both of us ever since.
Yeah.
And what do y'all think is your main mission with RV Love? Is it to help people get on the road and start RVing, or is it more to keep people on the road?
It's both. And, we say it's to basically help people live and love the RV life. So whether you're new or whether you're already on the road, I mean, we see a lot of, there's a lot of horror stories out there about RVing with things that go wrong and issues. And that can certainly happen with the RV life, but that can happen in regular life too. And so we're about really putting content out there that's balanced, that really gives people the tools to, okay, stuff's going to happen, but how are you going to deal with it? What attitude are you going to have, and what tools can you put in place to navigate that situation? Because I think it's for people that are new and getting into it, it's really overwhelming what there is to learn. And so we just aim to really create a clear path to learning so that people can find the right decisions for them, because you can RV any way you want, any budget, any kind of rig, whether you're a glamper or you like to get out there off grid or rough it a bit. I mean, it's just, there's something for everyone. So it's about helping people find that path that's right for them. And like we said, help them live and love it, whether they're new or been doing it for a long
Well,
time.
and also depending on how they do it, because most RVers, I think there's 11 million RVers out there. Most of them are weekenders and short time travelers. They're not full timers, but we do tend to attract a lot of full timers because we have much more thorough information, and people, that are taking it more seriously, that are going to do extended RV travel, do dive much deeper. And I think for us, it's just wanting to make it that much smoother, that much easier transition for people to make that jump, because it can be a steep learning curve. But if you do your research and you plan ahead well, it can be smooth and really enjoyable.
Well, and you bring up a great point. The idea of your resources and who you're using, and making sure that those folks know what they're talking about. And y'all have talked about that. And I notice in your content, you stress safety. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. Well, we think that's a very important part of this whole equation, is if you got to stay safe to have long-term success. And it's just, I'm former law enforcement, so I perhaps have a little bit higher value on safety than the average person. But we did a couple summits. That was actually when we did a summit last summer in 2020. We saw such an enormous spike in the interest in the RV space. And some of these people had no clue. They were just jumping in. Oh, this is the only way to travel. Let's do an RV. Let's jump in. And so we did a summit last year to help at least increase the baseline knowledge of as many people as we could with a free summit last summer. And because we just feel that that's the biggest key, is just keep people safe first and foremost, and then make it easier for people is secondary.
As Mike said, those when we started out on this, we did months and months and months of intensive research, probably about 9 months before we hit the road. And most people that do full-time or extended travel do that. But it was last year, nobody was expecting a pandemic, and people had been locked up and cooped up in their homes, and they wanted to get out and they wanted to be able to travel safely. And so, if people can learn about the importance of RV tire safety and the proper inflation and knowing about aged out tires and not overloading your rig and being overweight and increasing those risks that can cause an incident on the road, if we can help reduce that, that's going to improve their experience and keep them safer and improve all of our experience too. Because, as Mark said, he's former law enforcement, and people have said, well, is it safe out there? Do you get worried about RVing? We said, we've the most thing that I ever would worry about is the RV coming at us on the other side of the road that is overweight, that has aged out tires or is improperly inflated. And what if they have, an incident that can then impact the vehicles around them? But we've never encountered that, fortunately. But we tend to err on the side of caution because you just can't be too safe.
Right. So you guys have been at this for quite some time, as we mentioned. What's the biggest change you've seen since you started out in 2014?
Well, I think one of the biggest changes for us as looking at it is how many other people are trying to share information about RVing now. When we first hit the road, there were maybe half a dozen good resources that we would go out to find the information. And now there's probably hundreds, if not thousands, of different people who are trying to educate people or at least share their RVing experiences with people. And so I think whereas before it was harder to find information, now there's a bit of an information overload. And so it's hard to, figure out where to find the best information so that you make sure you're getting good information, because there's definitely a difference between good information and questionable information.
Information that's designed to get you to click and read or click and watch. And, I think we face that in all aspects of our life now, not just in the RV space. That's everywhere. And I think it's just up to all of us to not just see a headline and take that as being fact or truth, but really to learn to discern what is the source of the information and not to just blindly believe everything you see and read, So, yeah, but another change that I've really noticed is when we first hit the road, we were among the younger people in the campgrounds, and there were a lot more retired folks out there. Obviously, I think traditionally RVing has been seen as something that is a retired,
or especially extended travel RV.
Especially extended travel. But so many people, that's their dream, is to retire and buy an RV and travel the country. And so we were among the younger folks in the campground. Now, of course, we're older now, but also we've just seen the changing demographic, much younger, a lot more families, a lot more younger people working from the road. And so that demographic has really changed a lot. And we're seeing a huge diversity in age, in family sizes and groups and all kinds of diversity, which is great.
Well, and I think that took an even bigger jump last year as a percentage. I mean, we saw it changing throughout the last 7 years, but last year, especially because of so many people being able to work remotely, I think that was a huge increase in that popularity of this. One, it was a safe way to travel. Two, being able to work remotely. Now their kids are homeschooled, their work is remote. So everyone has this ability to be anywhere they want, not necessarily in the same location. So I think that was an especially large boom.
And technology over the last decade has really changed. And especially it's just getting better and better with cellular options with, when we first started back in 2014, we started researching in 2013, we thought we had to get satellite to get internet so Mark could do his job. But, through excellent resources, this is a trusted resource, is Technomadia and the RV Mobile Internet Resource Centre. Once we learned that we could get cellular internet on the road that would be sufficient for Mark to do his job, then it was game on. That was really, it wasn't what RV are we going to get, because it was pointless RV shopping till we knew we could get sufficient internet to work on the road. And we're just seeing the advancements in that. And of course, with social media and all the other new blogs and channels out there, there's just a lot more awareness now. So a lot more people are just aware that this is a thing, that people can really do it. But I think it's still a shock for a lot of people, like friends and family that hear, you're going to do what? And, I remember back then it was a big deal for us. And then our family, they thought it was great when we told them we were going to get an RV until we told them we planned to live in it and travel. Then they thought we were crazy.
Oh yeah,
That was
went to the
funny.
same.
That was funny.
Yeah, my wife, my lovely wife, she wanted someone to talk her out of it, but
Yeah.
no one would. Everyone said, "Oh, it
Everybody
sounds like
said,
a great
"Great."
idea. You can do that." Actually.
Aren't you glad they didn't talk you out of it? Because, it's just,
I'd have to admit that I am, yes.
well, I think one of the great things is just you have the options because you don't have to be constantly on the move all the time. And sometimes we are. Sometimes we'll move every 1 or 2 days or every week or 2 or 3 weeks, or very often we tend to hunker down for long periods of time working on a big project. So if we're working on writing one of our books, and when we built our online school, you know how disruptive it is to pack up and move and get set up and pack down. So we will park ourselves for a month or sometimes longer just to focus on that big project. And that's nice because then we also get, time to really explore the area more as a local instead of as a tourist. So I think, being able to just have those options and go to where the best weather is, of course.
Yes,
exactly.
That is key. We actually are doing that right now.
Yeah.
Going where the weather was better.
100 plus degree weather to
get
60s.
cool.
Here too.
Yeah. I think I agree with you. So often it is so good to stay in one place longer.
Mm-hmm.
You get to know it better. And didn't you find it, because y'all have traveled all the 50 states, right?
Yeah.
So did you find that almost the more you traveled, the more there was to see? You realized there was just more to see.
You to more.
Yeah.
You realize there was just so much more to see.
Yeah, we absolutely can relate to that. I mean, it's a huge country and there's so much to see. Absolutely. You go there and you're like, people have their little wish list of things they want to see. And then they get there and they realize, oh, well, there's 5 other state or national parks in this area that have gotten even better reviews than the national park they originally came to see, but there is so much. And part of the joy of the RV travel versus other travel is that you have that higher level of immersion as well. You go to hotel travel, you don't have near as much immersion. You're going to the restaurant in the hotel, you're staying in the rooms, where in your RV travel, you're much more immersive. You're going to the grocery store, you're going to the farmer's market, you meet up with other locals, you have your car, you're just much more explorative too. And you meet a lot more people than you do.
Yeah. When you're there on a vacation in a hotel, you're there for a week and you just have to hit those key spots. This way you have a little bit more leisure. You are working, so it's sort of like real life. You still have real life things. So you have a new book coming out. So you've already written the book, so to speak, on RV living. But now you have a new book coming out, right? Living the RV Life is your first book, which very exciting news. I heard it is now in Target and there's going to be an audio version.
Yes. So this book came out in November of 2018, and I think our publisher, it's Adams Media division of Simon & Schuster, and I think they really had a lot of great foresight because they said, we see this increasing trend in RVing, and especially extended travel and full-time RVing, or even seasonal, which is extended travel RVing, and there aren't resources out there by a professional publishing house that combine the aspiration with the practical aspects of it. And we think you guys are the right ones to write the book. And we were so honored because, it seems crazy that it was just as easy as them sending us an email. I mean, it wasn't really that easy. It was still a lot of work. But,
worked very hard.
we worked very hard. And after 2.5 years after the book came out, it's been a big month because last month in May, it's now available in Target stores nationally for the first time. It was in Costco when it first came out. But also we just got an email last week from the publisher saying it's now surpassed 20,000 copies sold, which we're really excited by. And as of July 13, which is the same day our second book will be published, Living the RV Life will be also available in audio, so Audible and Apple, iTunes. Thank you. We're excited. Thank you. We're excited because we love audiobooks. We've just been listening, and they're so great when you're driving, whether you're driving in the RV or doing chores or going for walks or at home, or if you're at home dreaming about the RV life, to be able to have this, and to be able to re-listen to it. I think it's easier to consume the information, and so we're excited about that. But yeah, it's been a big month, and it's just, great to know it's helping so many
Is Mark
people.
reading the audiobook?
Actually, no. We had some feedback from our audience saying, "Oh, they'd love to see us read the book," but we're actually having it done by a professional. Well, and a part of that's because of the way things changed last year with the pandemic too. A lot of it wasn't easy for us to be able to travel to a studio, and that whole professional readership has changed where people have it all in their homes. But we did have a Australian woman do Julie's part, and then we also we got at least choose between a number of different professional narrators.
It was really
similar, yeah.
It was fun because they sent us an email and said, "Okay, we're having your book professionally narrated," and for them, I guess from a production point of view, when you have a professional that's not flubbing over their lines like we would be, then it's probably a lot easier in the editing room, So I understand it, but they sent us all of these sample women voices and men voices, and we got to listen to them and think, oh, now does this guy sound like you, and does this woman sound like me? So it was kind of like a little, not interviewing, but just getting a little test. It was really funny. It felt surreal. I think it's going to be surreal when we get to listen to the book that we wrote in someone else's voice delivering it. I think it's going to be really funny.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Weird. Yeah, that's going to be cool.
We're really honored, yeah.
So I am curious. So knowing that folks are on the road all the time, and to your point, a lot of us listen to lots of podcasts and different things. Why write a book, a published book?
Yeah.
Well, I think a big part of it for me is to know you're reaching a new audience that some people don't necessarily, and there is something special about a tangible physical book in your hand. There really is something special about that. But I think that's one of the big gifts for that book is that it's in Barnes and Nobles all across the country. It's in bookstores everywhere. And so somebody that might be just not really know enough to be searching for it online, but they see it in their normal channels can pick it up. Like when it was in Costco, I mean, there's big stacks of 50 books on the counter, and hey, isn't Tommy into RVs? Oh, I'll get him that book. So I think that's part of it. It reaches that new audience.
And I think too, and this was the vision for our publisher, which we were completely on board with, is that you can see it's very unusual because it's landscape, it's horizontal, it's all shiny, but it's a coffee table style book. So it's the kind of book that you don't just leave on the shelf, that you leave it on your coffee table, and it's got lots of photographs and floor plans and all kinds of visual things in it. So, by keeping it on the coffee table, to me, it helps keep the dream alive.
That's right.
It's not like this is something I'm going to do someday when all the stars line up. It's like, no, keep it on your coffee table, keep that dream alive. Read the book from the beginning to end, or just pick up at any spot that you feel drawn to and read a bit and reread. And I think because when you're writing a book, you have to be so much more. It's such a different exercise to writing a blog or doing YouTube video, and it has to be very, succinct. We're limited on page count and that kind of a thing. But I think, we get to see the stats on the sales and things, and 90% of the copies sold are actually print, and about 10% are digital, on Kindle or e-reader and a PDF. So they're still interesting that even though it's available in digital, and as full-time RVers, I left behind most of my book collection, and I started getting them on digital so I could carry my books without the weight, because books are so heavy. And so it is surprising, I guess, to me that such a high percentage really do prefer the print version. But it is nice.
Right. The images are so important, and Kindle. I love my Kindle to read my fiction books. But when you have something that needs photographs and diagrams, I think print is print.
It's also the physical, tangible realization of a dream, or at least keeping that dream in front of you. I think is a really neat idea.
Which is so important, Barry, because you've got all of these other outside voices saying, what are you doing? You're crazy. Why are you doing this? And we've actually had a lot of people buy this book for their friends and their family, especially their family, to say, have a read of this. And now you'll understand. And some good friends of ours, Peter and John from the RV Geeks, they're actually featured in chapter 7 of the book, along with Technomadia and many other RVers that many of you will know are featured as case study stories in the book. And Peter and John had said, my mother, they've been RVing full-time for over 15 years. He said, my mother never could understand it. And now she's read your book and she finally gets it.
Oh, good.
And I think that's what a lot of people have been doing. So, okay, read this, and then you'll realize I'm not crazy, that a lot of people are doing this. Here are the reasons they're doing it. I have a plan, and I have all of these questions that you have that you're worried about and you're projecting onto me, that it's been thought through, it's been considered, my mail, my taxes, my banking, insurance, registration, everything,
Yes.
healthcare, all of that
Now
stuff.
you have a Christmas idea for Mom.
Yeah, I need to get it for the mother-in-law.
Yeah, tell us then about the second book. So I'm very excited about it. This is a book about living in an RV, but with hacks. I like hacks.
Right. So this one is called RV Hacks, 400 plus ways to make life on the road easier, safer, and more fun. And you can see that cover up there on the screen. I mean, it's broken down. I mean, who doesn't love hacks? We all want things to make our life easier. And if we can help, I guess, smooth out the learning curve for RVers. That's really what everything that we do is about. That. How do we make it easier for them? How do we make it safer? How do we make it more fun? And so this is broken up into 6 chapters. So, driving, camping and campgrounds, repairs and maintenance, working in technology from the road, kids, families, pets. I've missed one. Oh, I know, RV living, with things like meal tips and cooking and decorating and organizing and storage. So all the main areas of RV life. And yeah, there's over 400 hacks in there that just going to make it a lot easier. It's a fun read. You don't have to read it from beginning to end. You just pick it up and grab a hack here and there, and whether it's for yourself or to share with someone else, it's just a fun read. Yeah.
And we're especially excited about that because, our first book, Living the RV Life, though it can be appealing to most anybody interested in RVing, that's more focused on people who are going to be spending more extended time with your RVs, whether it be months or seasonal. Whereas this RV Hacks, can reach that even broader audience of the weekenders and everyone, because everyone can benefit from a few little tips, tricks, hacks.
Okay, so give us a hack on camp reservations.
Oh, that's a good
camping. Okay, good hack on. That is a hot topic, and in the RV Hacks book too, we've got over a dozen other RVs again that have contributed a lot of their hacks. I'm going to share this one from our good friend Marc from Campground Views, because he's a great one for getting last minute reservations, and he's been traveling with his family for over a decade in a 45-foot fifth wheel, and he doesn't ever make reservations. And that's sort of mind-blowing for a lot of people. But his strategy is, 2 things. So this might be 2 hacks rolling into one right now. One is when you're searching for your campsite, I mean, a lot of people I want to go to the Grand Tetons, and you look right in that area. And that can be difficult, especially so popular there for good reason. Expand your search to a wider radius. When you go 25, even 50 miles out, you can find a lot more options and a lot more affordable options. The second thing is cancellations. And, usually people will cancel 24, 48, 72 hours ahead of a reservation. And so very often you can call a campground and they'll say, no, we're full, we're busy. And so can you just check to see if you have had any cancellations? And they'll say, oh, actually, you know what? We actually just did have one. And yep, come right in. And so I think that's maybe easier to do if you're someone who's more comfortable with going with the flow and is more experienced, as obviously Marc was after a decade of RVing. But, I can understand that may not be as comfortable with people with big rigs, especially if you're new and not as comfortable with that, because what if you can't find anywhere?
And especially if you're working, because I know, speaking from our experience, when we first hit the road with my job, I needed to be settled with solid connectivity right away. So we had to be much more planned ahead to reduce that stress. But now, as the years went on, we got more and more fluid in our travel planning. But this year is much more difficult than it was back a few years ago with such a high interest in RVing, and there's so many people booking up. And to Julie's point, we've been hearing lots of reports of people booking these campground reservations and then canceling last minute. And so
and hoarding. This is what's happening.
Sites,
People remember last year when the pandemic hit and everyone was hoarding toilet paper?
Now they're hoarding campsites.
I think campsites are the toilet paper of 2021. Everyone's hoarding campsites. And so we are noticing this. So people are doing this, and they are booking campsites just because they're worried they're going to miss out and there's not going to be any. There are thousands of campgrounds around the country. And I can tell you some of the gems that we found. you go onto those RV review sites like Campendium, Campground
Mhm.
Reviews, RV Life, all of that. But here's the thing is that there are a lot of campgrounds out there that haven't got reviews. And people mostly go to the ones that A, have
Yeah.
reviews, and B, have good reviews, obviously. But there are a lot of mom and pop style small campgrounds out there that just aren't as good with the internet. They may not have a presence on social media. They may not be very good about having even a website or an online presence. They'll do their bookings with a pencil and calendar, and there are tons of them out there. And so if people don't know about them, they're not getting booked. So there are sites out there. And in fact, we stayed at a fantastic campground in Mobile, Alabama, coming across in March, called All About Relaxing. And we rolled in. Now, we were in a 45-foot motorhome that we were relocating for a friend. It was last minute. It was the end of snowbird season, so it was busy. Actually, it was the end of February, not March. So it was still a busy time. And being in southern Alabama, just on our way to Florida. And the reason we ended up there is a friend had recommended it. But when I went and looked it up on the review sites like Campendium, Campground Reviews, and Campground Reviews as well, no reviews.
Right.
And I don't know why, because it was beautiful campground. It was lovely, wasn't it? And there were no reviews. Now there's one because I put one, but but the point being is that so many people would miss that place because it didn't have reviews. And so, go look don't be afraid to go to places without reviews. It may be a bit more of a risk because it doesn't have other reviews. But I think right now we all need to be flexible as RVers. We can't always get when we want, exactly when we want, on the dates we want. We have to be flexible. That's just the way it is. And that's part of your RV life training is learning to be flexible and adapt. It's good life skills, I think.
It is good life skills. And there are, to Julie's point, there are sites out there. You just need to be a little bit more resourceful in finding them, using more tools and finding them out there.
But we've never been without a place to stay in 7 years of RVing, ever.
Yeah. And that's a good message to me too. I know I look at Campendium and the ones that don't have reviews, I skip over them mostly because I don't know if they have cell phone or not. Yeah. And I know Barry needs it because he works still full time as well. So, but that's a smart idea to just be the first to go there. It's probably because locals are going there and not reviewing because they don't want people to know about it.
Because they don't want people to know about it. I understand these things. But just give them a call, and you can give them a call and look, when you rely on the internet to work, you never really trust campground Wi-Fi. And so when they say, oh, yeah, we have internet, take that with a grain of salt, because unless you've got your own internet, just somebody starts streaming Netflix and then, you're out of luck. But I like to call ahead and I'll speak to the staff there and say, well, what cell phone carrier do you have? Are they Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile? And where in the park does it work everywhere? Are there some spots that are better than others? And then that's the best way I find.
That's a good idea.
It's I think what's challenging right now is that all of these new RVers that are coming in and discovering this lifestyle that we all have lived and loved for as much as we have is that it's not like just booking a hotel on Expedia and you can just go on, or booking.com, and you go in, you type in your criteria and bang, all of these options come up. It's still a bit behind the RV space, and the last year they've had to really change and evolve in response to that with their technologies and to make it a touchless check-in for campers as well. I think it's been difficult for them, but ultimately good. I think a lot of good's coming out of it.
Yeah, we're seeing actually from multiple sources, we're seeing quite a bit of technology coming into the RV space to improve the ability and the consistency in RV site booking. I think that's going to be a big change in the next year or two.
But we just stayed at a great campground visiting some friends last week, and it's called Kebler Corner, which is in Colorado in Somerset. It's got a mountain view, it's got a river right there, and it's got blazing fast fiber internet in an area that actually has no internet. Like when you drive into this town,
cellular coverage.
There's no cellular coverage driving into this town, and then you get to the campground, it's blazing fast fiber internet, because the property used to be owned by a billionaire, and that was his priority. So he put in, probably at some ridiculous cost, fiber internet and a horse riding arena for his wife, who would only come if she could ride her horse, apparently.
Nice.
So
You have to have your priorities.
money's
So little gems. There's little gems.
little
like
gems
that.
out there, exactly. And now we're telling people about it. We probably won't be able to get a reservation anymore.
We'll be in Colorado in a couple months. We'll look it up.
That's right.
We'll
Exactly.
look it up. Thank you. This has been so wonderful. Now tell everybody again about the new book and when it comes out.
The new book is going to be called RV Hacks, 400 Ways to make your life easier, simple, and
to
more
make
fun.
life on the road easier, safer, and more fun. It's a lot to get your
It is.
mouth around. We're still trying to remember it.
Just remember RV Hacks.
RV Hacks is all you need to know. You
But,
know.
that's coming out July 13th,
Yes.
and it's going to be all over the place.
Yeah, so we're excited. We're going to head into Denver area, and we're going to have some fun, jump in the Jeep and drive around and visit a whole bunch of bookstores and hopefully meet up with a lot of folks in our community. Because here's one of the best fun things about a print book is we get to sign them for
That's
people.
right.
And you can't do that so easily with the Kindle. That's one of our favorite things to do is meet our community out on the road and sign their books. So
Bookstores. So I'm excited. So I'm excited to go into a bookstore and see your book and hopefully get to meet up with you at some point, maybe when we're in Colorado, and have you sign it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
yes, give us a holler. We'd love to catch up with you guys.
thank you for coming on the virtual campground. Really appreciate it. And it was so nice meeting you.
And we know everybody can find you guys at rvlove.com.
That's right.
And you're on all the social media, but they can certainly go to your website, and there they'll find all the information about your book. We will also put the book in a link in for the show notes.
That's right.
Great. Well, thanks
It's
so much
so
for having
great.
us. It was a wonderful time with you.
Thanks for all you do.
Oh, thank you.
Oh,
It was
thank
wonderful
you.
meeting you. We've heard so
Yeah.
much about you for 3 years now,
That's
so
right.
I'm excited that we got to meet you.
Oh, this is great. Well, thanks for having us on, Deborah and Barry.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Safe travels. Bye.